First, I want to talk a little bit about these two stories. I got this from, just mainstream media. New York Post. Malaria found in U.S. for the first time in 20 years. Alarming officials. My goodness. Malaria, a potentially deadly disease caused by mosquito-borne parasite, making inroads in the U.S. What? How could this be? 5 new cases of malaria, 1 in Texas and 4 in Florida, are alarming officials because they were locally acquired, meaning a mosquito in the U.S. was carrying the parasite. That's a big deal because that hasn't happened since 2003 in Palm Beach County, Florida, according to the Centers for Disease and Prevention. Almost all the cases of malaria now seen in the U.S. are from people who traveled outside of the country where they were exposed to disease-carrying mosquitoes. So from 2003 till 2023, so over 20 years, every case of malaria in America was acquired outside of America. In other words, there were no mosquitoes in America that we knew of carrying malaria. No mosquitoes in America carrying malaria for 20 years. All of a sudden, we've got 5 cases in Florida. What are the odds? What could be behind this? We'll look into it here, but let's continue for now with this story. Quote, it's always worrisome that you have local transmission in an area. Estelle Martin, an entomologist at the University of Florida who researches mosquito-borne diseases, told Vox, malaria spreads when a person carrying the parasite gets bit by a mosquito. The parasite develops inside the mosquito, which then bites another person or several other people, infecting them with the parasite. But people with the parasite in their blood don't always have symptoms, making it easy for the disease to spread when an asymptomatic person is bit. Symptoms of malaria include fever, shaking, chills, headache, muscle ache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and tiredness, according to the CDC. If it's not treated promptly, the infection can cause jaundice, anemia, kidney failure, seizures, mental confusion, coma, and death. Malaria can be treated when it's diagnosed early enough, and a vaccine is now available. These recent cases show how a warming climate, oh my God, it was climate change. It was climate change after all. What's this? Oh, I'm sorry, what's this? Bill Gates releasing genetically modified mosquitoes in Florida? Well, certainly that has nothing to do with it, right? I mean, that can't be the case, can it? Right? You've got 20 years where not a single mosquito carrying malaria in the United States. Bill Gates decides to release mosquitoes carrying malaria in a genetically modified form, and suddenly you have cases, 5 of them in Florida, where malaria has been contracted from a mosquito. Why? This is so strange. This is so odd that this is happening in this particular way. Bill Gates is not himself releasing mosquitoes into the wild. However, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did award grants that funded biotech company Oxitec's work to develop genetically modified mosquitoes that may help reduce the spread of malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases. Yeah, they might. And they might do that. Of course, we went 20 years without mosquito-borne malaria in the United States until these guys showed up. So that's kind of odd how that works, isn't it? Isn't that odd? I find that odd. In April 2021, it was announced that approximately 150,000 mosquitoes would be released across 6 locations in Florida. Several state and federal agencies have been involved in the approval of this project, a multi-year research project to genetically modify Aedes aegypti, a mosquito species that's known to carry and transmit infectious diseases to humans, was slated to move from the labs to the fields of Texas and Florida in mid-2021. Well, what are the odds, folks? What are the odds? What are the odds that we go 20 years without mosquito-borne malaria in the United States, and then a mere year after mosquitoes genetically modified are released in Texas and Florida, do we have 5 examples of mosquito-borne malaria in Texas and Florida? I mean, if I was a conspiratorial type of person, I would think that this is the consequence of releasing those malaria-infected mosquitoes in both Florida and Texas. I mean,
do you remember in years past when they released genetically modified mosquitoes and they were like, oh, it's fine. No, these mosquitoes will literally breed with the existing population of mosquitoes, and then they'll produce infertile mosquitoes that can't reproduce. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. It's a
and
miracle.
then it turned out that they produced super resilient mosquitoes that are like super buff, like really jacked, had like little mosquito 6-packs.
It's also probably where like Zika virus came from.
Oh yeah, well, probably not where Zika came from, but they were able to transmit it. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm just connecting lines here. I'm just, pure speculation here. Far be it from me to, without solid evidence, implicate some massive pharmaceutical gene modification program for actually starting and spreading malaria in the United States. But gee, sure does seem like a coincidence. We go from 2003 to 2023 without a single case of malaria being spread by a mosquito, only to have, so, even that is kind of bizarre, right? You've got 20 years where there are no mosquitoes spreading malaria, and then along comes this company funded by Bill Gates to solve a problem that doesn't exist in the United States, right? Malaria borne by mosquitoes does not exist, has not existed since 2003, and even that was like a one-off, total outlier. It's not like it's a regular thing here. So for 20 years, this problem doesn't exist. Along comes Bill Gates to solve this non-existent problem, and suddenly in the exact places where he released mosquitoes, we have an outbreak of malaria that we haven't had in 20 years. I mean, it's kind of coincidental, isn't it? Isn't that just the biggest coincidence you've ever heard of? I mean, it would be one thing if like they released them in Connecticut and Michigan, and they, these cases were in Florida and Texas, but no, they released these in the fields of Texas and Florida in mid-2021. Under the project, thousands of these mosquitoes were altered to make their reproduction more difficult, thus slowing and eventually preventing the spread of mosquito-borne illnesses like Zika and dengue fever. But when the internet caught wind that Bill Gates may have been behind the project, posts circulated on social media that questioned the real motivation behind the project. So that was from 2021. Fast forward a couple years, and we have the first cases of mosquito-borne malaria in the United States, exactly where they released them.